Rome, 260 AD. Two men stand in the forum. Marcus, a silversmith, 60 years old, steady eyes despite his age. He's holding a small leather pouch containing 43 pure silver denarii minted decades ago when coins still contained real metal. Beside him stands Gaius, textile merchant, same age, same neighborhood, lived through same 25-year crisis. Gaius holds nothing. His hands are completely empty. Not because he saved less than Marcus, not because he worked less hard or took foolish risks. Both men did everything the system told them was prudent and responsible. One survived intact, one was financially destroyed. The difference came down to 6 specific assets. Let me show you which 6 held value when an empire's currency collapsed, and which 6 evaporated so completely that millions of Romans couldn't understand what had happened to their accumulated wealth. This is documented survival versus documented annihilation. By the end, you'll know exactly which asset classes preserved wealth when Rome's denarius went from 60% silver content to half of 1%, and which assets, no matter how safe they seemed, were systematically destroyed. The pattern is repeating right now. First, the 6 that survived. Number 1. Physical gold and silver held outside the banking system. Marcus understood something most Romans didn't grasp. The coins weren't just metal objects, they were a claim on future productivity that couldn't be arbitrarily diluted by imperial decree. When Emperor Nero began debasing the denarius in 64 AD, reducing silver content from 99% to 90%, most Romans didn't panic at all. The adjustment seemed minor and necessary given military expenses on distant frontiers. But Marcus's father had taught him one critical principle. Once currency debasement begins, it never stops voluntarily. Every emperor faces the identical fiscal pressure: not enough tax revenue to cover obligations, too many expenses to maintain the empire. And the politically easiest solution is always the same: reduce the metal content slightly, mint more coins at the same face value, pay today's bills with inflated money supply. Let the next emperor handle the inflation consequences. Marcus didn't trust the system to maintain discipline indefinitely. He converted a significant portion of his savings to the oldest, purest coins he could locate and hid them under the floor of his workshop, not in a temple deposit account, not in any government-backed storage. Under his workshop floor where no institution could see them, freeze them, or debase them by government decree. When Diocletian finally stabilized the currency in 294 AD with a new gold solidus, Marcus's hidden coins could be exchanged at full value. He had successfully preserved real purchasing power across 3 decades of complete monetary chaos. Gaius made a different choice based on conventional wisdom. He trusted the system completely. His savings were held mostly in newer denarii because they were easier to spend daily, more liquid for transactions, accepted everywhere. By 268 AD, those coins were bronze cores with a silver wash so thin it wore off within weeks of minting. The face value hadn't changed at all. 1 denarius was still legally 1 denarius, but purchasing power had evaporated almost completely. A coin that bought a full week of food in 200 AD bought a single day's bread in 260 AD. Same number of coins, completely different economic reality. Wealth was transferred from Gaius directly to the government through a mechanism so gradual he never knew when to run. Number 2. Productive land under direct personal control. Marcus owned a modest farm 15 miles outside Rome, not for investment returns or rental income speculation, for complete food independence. The land produced enough wheat, olives, and vegetables to feed his household regardless of what happened to currency stability or trade networks. When the crisis of the 3rd century made roads dangerous and urban food prices chaotic, Marcus's family continued eating normally. When currency collapse made buying food in urban markets impossible for those holding only debased coins, Marcus's land generated calories directly without any intermediary, no currency required whatsoever. Gaius owned property as well, 2 apartment buildings in the Subura district generating rental income. On paper, these looked like valuable productive assets. In practice, they became a devastating trap. His tenants paid rent in denarii at rates fixed by decades-old legal agreements. As the denarius systematically collapsed, those rental payments became completely worthless. Gaius was still receiving the exact same number of coins monthly, but they bought almost nothing in the marketplace. He couldn't raise rents easily due to strong tenant protections and intense social pressure. He couldn't sell the buildings because everyone was simultaneously trying to sell into a collapsing currency market. Property values denominated in worthless denarii became economically meaningless. His rental properties generated zero real income and couldn't be liquidated for any real value. The physical buildings still stood, the wealth was completely gone. Number 3. Foreign hard currency held outside the collapsing monetary system. Marcus maintained approximately 15% of his total savings in Greek drachmas. Not a large percentage, but those drachmas were issued by a different political entity facing different fiscal pressures. They didn't collapse in lockstep with Rome's denarius. When Marcus needed to purchase materials his workshop required, materials that Roman merchants absolutely wouldn't sell for debased worthless denarius, he could offer stable drachmas instead. The merchant accepted immediately. Transaction completed successfully. Access to foreign currency provided an escape valve. It allowed Marcus to continue operating economically even as Rome's domestic monetary system failed completely. Gaius held zero foreign currency. Why would he need it? Rome was the undisputed center of the civilized world. The denarius had been the reserve currency of the known world for 2 full centuries. Holding foreign money seemed completely unnecessary and even unpatriotic. When the collapse arrived, Gaius had absolutely no alternative. Every single transaction had to occur in debased denarii that were losing value daily. No escape valve available, no optionality whatsoever. Complete dependence on a failing system. Number 4. Practical skills that generated direct value regardless of currency conditions. Marcus was a skilled silversmith. People needed tools repaired constantly. They needed commercial scales calibrated accurately. They needed metalwork completed. These fundamental needs existed whether currency functioned properly or not. During the absolute worst years of the crisis, Marcus stopped accepting payment in denarii entirely. He worked purely for barter instead. A farmer brought grain in exchange for fixing a broken plow. A merchant provided olive oil for calibrating scales properly. The skill itself had intrinsic economic value. It generated income completely independent of monetary conditions. Gaius was a textile merchant and wholesaler. He bought fabric wholesale, sold retail with markup, managed supply contracts with wealthy patrician families. His entire business model depended completely on a functioning currency system for accurate pricing, smooth transactions, and enforceable contract obligations. When the currency collapsed and contracts became legally unenforceable because payments were made in worthless money, his business model collapsed simultaneously. He possessed commercial knowledge and connections, but no practical skill that generated direct tangible value. When the formal system failed completely, Gaius had nothing concrete to trade. Number 5. Community networks and trust-based relationships. Marcus had spent decades deliberately building strong relationships with local farmers, craftsmen, and merchants in his immediate area. When currency failed completely, these relationships became critical economic infrastructure. The farmer who brought grain for plow repair trusted Marcus deeply. They'd worked together successfully for many years. No formal contract needed, no currency required, just mutual benefit and well-established trust. This network allowed Marcus to exchange goods and services effectively when formal markets froze completely. Gaius had business relationships too. Commercial contracts with patrician families, professional business connections throughout the city. But these relationships were mediated entirely through currency and formal legal agreements. When the currency collapsed and contracts became worthless, the relationships dissolved immediately. His patrician clients stopped ordering completely. They faced their own financial crisis. Gaius's professional network, built purely on monetary transactions, provided zero support when money failed. Number 6. Tangible consumables with direct utility and barter value. Marcus maintained a modest but strategic stockpile, preserved food that wouldn't spoil, salt for food preservation, a supply of basic medicines and herbal remedies, simple tools and metal stock for his trade. These weren't speculative investments purchased for appreciation, they were insurance against system failure. When currency failed completely and even barter became difficult, Marcus had items with immediate utility that desperate people needed urgently. A family facing hunger would trade valuables for preserved food. Someone injured would trade for basic medicine. These consumables became a form of currency themselves, not because they were stamped by imperial authority, but because they addressed fundamental human needs that existed regardless of what happened to official money. Gaius held no such stockpile. His wealth was entirely in financial abstract form: currency, property contracts, business relationships. When the financial system collapsed, he had nothing tangible to trade except furniture and personal possessions sold at desperate prices. Now, what went to zero? Number 1. Cash savings in denarii. Between 200–270 AD, 98% purchasing power lost, not stolen, debased. Metal content dropped 60% to 0.5%. Number 2. Government bonds and pensions. Promised repayment in denarii, technically repaid but worthless. Number 3. Fixed rental income. Same coins, zero value. Number 4. Urban property. Can't generate income, can't sell. Number 5. Debt as creditor. Repaid in worthless currency. Number 6. Domestic business equity. No export revenue, destroyed. Survivors understood money is claim on productivity. Claim fails, need assets functioning independently. Marcus at 60 held coins and security. Gaius held nothing. Same crisis, different assets, different outcomes. Contemporary parallels everywhere. US debt 38 trillion. Fed balance 4 to 9 trillion. Central banks buying gold fastest pace 50 years. Same pattern. Subscribe before repetition. Question isn't whether currency debased, whether you hold 6 that survive or 6 that go zero. The forensic record is specific and devastating. Cash savings held in domestic currency lost 98% of purchasing power, not through confiscation, but through systematic debasement. Government bonds and pension obligations were technically honored but paid in currency worth almost nothing, destroying everyone who trusted official promises. Fixed rental income stayed numerically identical while real value evaporated completely, trapping landlords in agreements paying worthless money. Urban commercial property couldn't generate real rental income and couldn't be sold for real value when everyone tried selling simultaneously into currency crisis. Private debt, where you were the creditor, meant being repaid nominal amounts in progressively worthless currency, transferring your wealth to borrowers. And domestic-only business equity without export revenue collapsed as all transactions occurred in dying currency while input costs rose equally fast, destroying real profitability. All 6 sharing one fatal characteristic: complete dependence on the monetary system remaining trustworthy and functional. When trust failed, when function failed, all 6 went to absolute zero. The pattern isn't theoretical. It's documented across multiple collapses throughout history. Rome took 2 centuries. Initial debasement seemed minor and manageable, but once the door opened, it never closed. Each emperor made the same choice when facing identical fiscal pressure. Each small debasement compounded with the previous ones. And Romans, holding their life savings in the 6 currency-dependent asset classes, were destroyed so gradually over generations they never knew precisely when to reposition. The cess,